We're going to call this meeting to order, please. And thank you everyone for showing up on a Sunday morning. And we would like to stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Cindy, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we'll entertain a call to the public. I don't know if we had anyone here. Pardon me? I'm sorry. Thank you. Could we adopt the agenda, please, as presented? Someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. At this time, we have call to the public. Anyone? Thank you.
But we have one.
We do have one. Oh.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Oh, no, you gotta talk
You
now.
gotta do now.
Yeah, this is call to the public. Did you want to talk now?
Microphone, please. It's really just a question on how, if the decision was made based on solely what's going on in our county.
There's no decision.
That's
That's
why
what we're
we're
here
here.
for.
Okay. We can ask questions after the decision is made.
It's a good question. John, are you on? John?
Yeah.
The question is, can she ask questions after the decision is made?
Well, the call to the public is really to discuss things that are not on the agenda.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
if you want, it's up to you to decide if you want to allow discussion during the agenda item. So that would be, and typically we do.
Okay, that would be fine during the agenda
So
item.
it's not necessarily if she wants to talk about something that's an agenda item, or he or she, whoever it is, that's up to you to do at that time. So it wouldn't be now, it wouldn't be during call to the public, it'd be during the agenda item.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, item 6, discussion and possible action for school closure. So I don't know if John, if you want to present this or if Cindy is on the online to present this piece.
I can share a little bit, and if Cindy wants to kind of add to it when I'm done. I spoke to all the board members yesterday individually, kind of let them kind of with an update of what was going on.
Can you hear? Can we turn this up? Excuse me, John, we're going to try to turn this up. We can't hear you very well.
I don't know what
Okay.
Volume.
That's as loud as it gets.
All right, try again, please.
Is that better?
Yeah,
that's
it is actually, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry.
So yesterday, it was a little bit crazy. I learned that both Humboldt schools and Prescott schools were going to end up closing due to concerns about coronavirus. And this was something that was surprising. We had received information that the county health department, along with the state health department and the governor's office, were suggesting that schools stay open. I understand why the decision was made. There is concerns in the community about coronavirus. Obviously, if you've been to the grocery store lately, you can see evidence of that. One of the other concerns is during spring break, we had there were many of our staff and students that were traveling that potentially could, for not likely, but could be exposed. And so they made the decision to do that. So in talking, as you and I talked yesterday, Penny, you spoke to our attorney, I spoke to the attorney. Both of us spoke to Mr. Carter, the county superintendent, and you had I think the wise idea to kind of have this meeting so that the board members can discuss the ramifications and the consequences and to decide if it's appropriate for Chino Valley. My recommendation during the discussion with you, individually with y'all, was that we close at least for a week to see what's going on, and that would give us time also, because it's so fluid right now. Things are changing on a daily basis, almost. That would give us a chance to kind of get some planning in place so that if it is a long-term situation, that we have something in place to address the needs of our kiddos and that in our community. This is really a community issue that that you guys will be deciding today.
Okay. Any questions, anybody? Cindy, would you chime in, please?
Sure. Some of the things that we've had an opportunity to consider are implications for staff and staffing, implications regarding serving our special needs students, implications for the 63% of our students who receive free and reduced lunch and who rely on us for 8 meals a week. And so those are things that over the course of the week, since it was break, we had a little bit of time to think and plan for, and we have some purposeful contingency plans in the works for all of those things, pending the outcome of your decision today. And I feel pretty confident. I'll give you just kind of a brief overview of what some of those things could look like, not necessarily what they would, but what they could look like. The U.S. Department of Education has released information to school districts about serving special needs students. And how it works is this: whatever you do for the general population, you also have to make available for the special population. So for example, if we stayed in session, we couldn't say special needs kids, you should stay home, like if you're fragile, and require them to stay home. We could make it their decision to come, for parents to send their children or not, but we would need to make accommodations in the home for students who weren't receiving education here. So if we have school and kids can't attend because of their special needs, then we have to make adjustments and adaptations for that. So we have to make sure that we have equal access to education for everybody. So that's an important consideration for us. Another consideration is that we have staff members who rely on our salary to make ends meet. Sounds ridiculous because I think we all come to work every day so we can make ends meet. But that's an important consideration for us too. But also looking out for the health and wellness and safety of our staff, and making sure that our staff is safe as well, and not just our students, but that our staff is safe. We've looked at possibilities for doing things like the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which runs school lunch programs through the National School Lunch Program, is relaxing some of their rules and regulations right now, because some of those rules and regulations prohibit us from transporting food to kids. And so what we're looking at as they're relaxing those rules, Sodexo's done a really good job of keeping up on the changes and what some of those are. So we can do things maybe like utilize our parapros and our classified staff to help pack lunches every day, that they could go on bus runs with drivers and deliver them to normal bus stops for kids. And so we're looking at lots of potential things like that. And I also wanted to point out that we've had staff express concerns about returning to school, and it's been interesting because different staff who teach different age students have expressed different kinds of concerns, or staff who maybe work with our special needs kids who have a different understanding of that have expressed some different concerns about staying in session. But we've had quite a few community members contact me, which I think is really cool, offering to help. Anything they can do to help, and especially acknowledging the fact that we do have students who rely on meals from us. And so we've worked already in the last 48 hours developing some contingency plans for that lots of churches in the area want to work together on to help, and even personnel from Yavapai College have offered to help. So, and then kind of randomly, I started getting messages on my phone over the weekend from college students who have been sent home saying, hey, I'm going to be home. If you guys need anything, just tell us and we'll come help. So I think even in the midst of difficult decisions that we have to make here to protect our students and staff, we've had a tremendous amount of outpouring from the community who recognize the importance of the decision that you'll make today.
Okay. Comments? Anybody?
Well, those are actually pretty much everything I wanted to address. With the food service, that was probably my main concern was making sure that our kids are still fed. And it sounds like we have things in place to make that happen. Are we worried about those children that will be home that will not be able to still go get the meal? Are we gonna try and put anything in place?
And I think that's one of the things that we've really thought about. John and I had a chance to talk a little bit yesterday morning, because as things sort of evolve, you have to start changing your thinking a little bit. And one of the things that we thought about was, if we're dropping at normal bus stops, kids already know how to get to a normal bus stop.
Okay.
And so those are things, and then that keeps our drivers working, keeps our paras working, and things like that. So there are some things that we can do, I think, because one of our, problems in the summer is if we do summer feeding at a central location, a lot of kids can't get there,
Right.
but kids know how to get to their own bus stops. And one thing we didn't talk about that I had someone ask me about was, what about childcare? And an interesting thing that I really started thinking about, and that others in the community have mentioned, is, city people are coming off spring break. They've already had to arrange childcare for their kids during break, plus they already do things with their kids during summer when you're not in session. So people already have connections or contacts, plus there are lots of high school kids available too if we don't have school in session. So that was another thing I wanted to mention that someone did ask about.
And you did touch on staff. Will we be able to offer all staff continued hours, or is it going to be shortened hours? Or will there be some that will be going without work?
I think one of the biggest decisions is Arizona has a law that's called gift of public funds that prohibits you from giving money just for existing, I guess I would say that. However, we do expect, in the Arizona School Administrators Association and some other kind of the alphabet soup group that are behind school business, have been working with legislators even over the weekend to see if they can kind of relax some of those provisions in order to continue to pay people. We also know that the governor has set aside significant amounts of money from the rainy day fund to be using, the state's sitting on a $900 million surplus right now just from the last year alone. And so we think that, we can't say specifically because schools started making these decisions very late in the week, and the legislature won't be back in business again till tomorrow morning. And so those are some of the things that I think that the legislature will be responsive about, because it's good for Arizona economy. And our goal right now is to keep people working. And so there are always lots of things to do in a school. We have a little bit of a plan for what we would do should you decide to extend our break for a week. And one is that we would ask that for right now, employees will still continue to be paid, but that only 12-month would report tomorrow. And that by Wednesday, we could have our paras and our teachers back, so we could have meetings with them and talk about plans going forward. Because we think we'll have, tomorrow we won't have as many answers, but by Wednesday, we think we'll have a lot more answers even from the state level, so.
And I want to add that in talking with the district's attorney, she gave us an idea of how to, over the next 2 days, we're going to ask all staff to stay home. And she gave us a way to address or to pay them during those 2 days. And then bring all staff back on Wednesdays, and they would actually be working on the clock and getting paid for those days. So short term, we have ways to pay them. Long term will require the intervention of the legislature and governor to continue paying employees.
Okay. Can I say, I personally, John and I had this conversation yesterday too. I'm feeling that it's a little premature to close our schools, personally, just because there are only 12 cases in the entire state of Arizona and none in Yavapai County. And I feel like I know some of the impact that's gonna have on our community, but it's gonna have a bad impact. I worry because I know that some of the legislation that they just are passing allows for 14 days for somebody. So if you have 14 days sick pay that the evidently small business will get paid back, and they can take care of their children, go home and take care of their children, then what if they get it? Are they out? I mean, Are we gonna run out of time? It just seems premature for me. I think it's for me, I feel like it should be sort of a wait and see, at least. I mean, if there's a case in Yavapai County, then let's come and talk, about closing.
And I'm in agreement, thinking that we're not at the peak of this yet.
Yeah.
And if we close now, there could be a likelihood that we might not have school the rest of the year. And that's really gonna be devastating to this community. So, my feeling is, if we need to take the week to sit down and find out some concrete issues
I agree.
of what this, if it goes long-term, what are the ramifications for the kids, teachers? A question I had posed to John was, and I'll pose it to Larry, online.
I'm gonna,
Not ready. Yeah.
I'll butt in with that.
Okay.
Dr. Brown, one of the biggest detriments we have in our community, we have the capacity for teachers to make assignments available, for example, through Google Classroom, but only about 40% of our student population has access to internet and technology at home that would enable them to complete assignments. Just because a kid can access Google Classrooms on their phone doesn't mean you can scan a calculus homework to your phone for your teacher to review your homework and things like that. And so, although we have the capacity to make learning available, that doesn't necessarily mean that students have the capacity to take advantage of that. And in our community, and in rural communities especially, it's not that there isn't internet, it's that people maybe can't afford it or don't have a computer or things like that. And just because a kid can look at something on their phone, I mean, can you take a picture of your homework? Yeah, but you don't, as you know, most of the textbooks we're still using, and as they're rolling in, our new ones will be different, but those aren't available online. And so teachers would be taking pictures of a page, for example, or things like that. So the answer is it possible? Ish. Is it likely to be wildly effective? Probably not. So, but that was a really good question.
Right.
So what if the decision is this week, or the decision's next week, or 2 months from now? What does that what does that do to the students? How much longer do they have to go to school? Are these makeup days?
That's a really good question,
Yeah.
and that's something that we expect to hear from the legislature this week.
Okay.
Because,
You gotta figure that if you look at like the Republic, there's a list of districts, particularly in Maricopa, that have canceled school for the next couple weeks or so. I think I read that there's about 1 million students in K-12 students in Arizona, and at least right now, 200,000 of those students are the schools that or districts that have decided to close. And I think that number is only going to get larger. And so this is not a problem that just Chino Valley is going to be addressing. This is going to be some very large districts, Scottsdale and some of the larger districts down in Maricopa that are dealing with this as well. And so it's going to be a statewide issue that's going to have to be addressed. Like Cindy mentioned the letter from ASA. There was, some of the suggestions in there were things like shortening the number of hours or days that are required because of the closures, the possibility of not requiring state testing, which is going to be kicking off in the next couple weeks. And this is just the worst time for that. And some other things that all districts that are closing are addressing, not just us.
and some of those, one of the things that we've thought about, and I think Dr. Brown, you have indicated, our feeling is by midweek, we're probably gonna have some more answers. And it also, no one was expecting this time last week that this is the way the ball would turn in Arizona, given the lack of cases of COVID-19 in Arizona. But I think that it just even buying ourselves a little bit of time isn't necessarily a bad idea, because now staff will have a chance to think about things for a few days. We'll have more answers I think, from the state within a few days, because I don't think the state was expecting to have to answer these questions like 3 minutes later, you know, kind of a deal. And so it's been a pretty interesting turn of events, but your questions are all fantastic questions.
Because the health department, as I understand it, John, right, the health department is saying don't close, right? And our attorney is saying it's premature, let it ride. You
Well,
know,
in talking with the chief, he did have a point that, you know, if everyone else was closed and something happened in Chino Valley, that it could be devastating to the district because we didn't close. And so there's two parts here. There's the science, and then there's the political part of it. And, you know, there needs to be and community part of it. There needs to be a balance between those two issues. Just because the health department says that we shouldn't close doesn't mean we shouldn't, because the community needs it. But you're right. The health department is saying that it's not necessary to close. I did email the director of the health department last night, and her stance is still the same, but she understands the community's concern about what's going on, and so it's not like she's saying that we can't. It's her recommendation is still that it's not necessary to close.
And I guess, you know, some of the questions and concerns that staff.
I would like to speak if that's okay.
oh, all right.
Say who it is.
Who is this? You have to say your name, please.
This is Annie Morrison.
Thank you, Annie.
I did not sleep last night because I feel like we have a big decision on our hands. I wanted to figure out the best way to handle this, and one of the things that I'm looking at right now is if we were in school last week and this all came up, my decision would be let's not close. We were just in school last week. You know, everybody said, like you said, there's no cases in Yavapai County. However, we had spring break last week, and lots of people traveled all over the place. And bringing everybody back in together, and just by chance, if somebody did get sick, that would be on us. So, in my opinion, I would feel that we should give it a week and maybe let the dust settle a little bit and then reevaluate everything.
And I happen to be kind of in that boat also. I don't want to close. I think that that's detrimental to everybody. However, on the heels of spring break, I really kind of think that if we were going to, this would be the week that we would do it. It's just a continuation. It's not an uprooting, closing in the middle of everything.
Well, and I think too, we don't have all the facts from the government.
Right.
So we're kind of, if we close and then they make the choice of, no, you shouldn't have closed, we're not gonna do anything for you. I think we at least take this week, get plans in place for if there is a long-term closure, or we take this week and things calm down or escalate and we have more information, then we make a better informed decision.
Yeah, at least set some criteria where, let's say if there is a case or several cases, whatever the criteria, you know, we decide.
Right.
What makes us come back to the drawing board and say, you know.
And one thing that I wanted to share with you kind of in that regard is,
Now, just so, you know, everyone is aware, both Prescott and Humboldt have 2 weeks that they've requested, or that they are going to be off. And I think part of the thinking there is that the coronavirus takes about 2 weeks in order to incubate and decide, you know, it's a 2-week incubation period. So 1 week, you know, there could still be cases that pop up after a week, but a week of planning, you know, if something does happen, I think it would happen within a week or so. But it could still happen in 2 weeks. We just need to be aware of that.
Okay.
I think it's irresponsible for us not to take some time off, because if there is a case, I think we'd be held responsible for not making the wise decision to close at least for a week, in view of the fact that the other districts have closed, and that things seem to be escalating, not county-wise, but maybe country-wise. And so my suggestion would be to close for a week and see how things are going.
Well, like the case down in Pima where it was a teacher or teacher aide had been exposed and then unknowingly exposed like the whole elementary school. But she didn't know she had been infected until it was too late.
Something I can share with you about, and John and I talked about this, if we take a week, we have, right now, a snow day makeup day still that we haven't used. And so we could recover one day on that. That leaves us 3 days where we didn't have student attendance. So, Dr. Bone, to your point, if the state decided they're not going to give you grace for the days you took off, we think that with 3, we could make up the minutes because we're already over hours in all our buildings right now. We think we could adjust the school day for the remainder of the school year if it looked like that wasn't going to be the case, and pick up the hours again to keep us flush on hours. And so we feel like basically it's 3 days worth of time, but it's actually less. And I didn't do the hours audit before this morning because I had to go pick my college kid up from the airport. But there was, that's all possible. And because we're so far out still from the end of the year, we believe that we could easily make up those 3 days should they decide not to give us the grace.
And roughly how many school days do we have left?
We have 39 school days left starting tomorrow.
Not that we're counting.
Ask the principals, they know, I'm like, I don't know, I work all year.
Any other questions from the board? I was gonna ask you if I know the board had any more questions. Okay, public?
That's what I would like to know, kind of get input from all of you out there, just to base it on the prevailing opinion.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
I just wanted to ask, because I have contractors that work for me that are like counselors, physical therapists, occupational therapists, etc. And this is going, if we take days off, I typically pay them according to them coming in. Well, if they're not coming in and they're not a district employee, how does that work?
That's something for us to figure out as an administrative team.
Okay, okay. I
That's
wasn't sure
not,
if that was
it's not a board
here.
question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have a concern.
Tell them who you are, Catherine.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
My name is Catherine Berner. I am the district nurse for Chino. But I've worked in the community for many years, and we have a large population of students who are being raised by grandparents. And COVID-19 seems to, outcomes tend to be worse for those who are 65 plus. And so that's something, not just as a school, because we do feed a lot of our kids, but also long-term effects. What does that look like if we have COVID here and so many of our kiddos, their nuclear family is their grandparents get sick, have a higher mortality rate? We've got a lot of kids that are gonna be going into the system. And worst case scenario, in the state of Arizona, they can move them to a different county. So we lose students at that point too. Not just because of illness, but because if we've got grandparents who are no longer able to take care of their grandchildren, they go into foster, they get moved, we have a lot of outflux of students. And again, these are hard decisions, but I think that's something that the board needs to take into account too. I have no idea what percentage of our student population live with a grandparent.
about 20, about 20%.
But I think it's significant, and I think that is something that needs to be considered.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Tell them who I am.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, John, Annie, this is Jody Bazook. I've been a nurse mostly surrounding the emergency department for the last 15 years. Yes, you're correct that it does affect the older population. However, we have 8,100 square miles of Yavapai County and not one confirmed case. So, I mean, I can understand taking a week, but if you're also taking those first 2 days that the teachers aren't coming to school and potentially not getting paid, then who's getting together other than the board and making those decisions? Are there groups from each individual school making contingency plans for their individual schools, because they all require different things? Cindy, you made a point about pushing back days and using the snow days. I mean, some people could keep their kids home on the snow days just because they don't think that's pertinent. I mean, if we make the decision to push it back a week, if that pushes us back into summer also, and making a decision for potentially next week based on the if. You know, we have concrete evidence right now that there's 12 cases in Arizona, none within 8,100 square miles. That's a pretty big area to not have any cases, and making a decision to keep our kids out of school if, just in case something happens. You know, I mean, we hope that our community would make the right decision and use their integrity to keep your kids home if you're sick or you've been traveling to a highly populated area that has the virus.
Well said, I agree with that. It's really incumbent on the parents. If your child is sick, don't send them in.
However, I think statistics and school professionals
Yeah.
will show that's not the case.
I know.
Our
But this
parents
is-
do not keep our children.
Lori? Lori, could you come up here, please? We can't hear you from back there.
No one else had to come up here.
Yeah, but you're so cute.
Is this on? No, I'm having difficulty hearing them.
John's having a difficulty hearing,
It's not
and
on.
Lori just came up to the microphone. Thank you, John.
It's not on. It's not on at all?
No?
Okay.
All right.
All right, so, I don't have a teacher voice.
Can you speak up, because John can't hear?
My name is Lori Marley. I'm the Family Resource Specialist, AKA the Homeless Liaison. In answer to Catherine's question, 18% of our homeless students are raised by grandparents, must be 20% in the whole district. 18% of our homeless, that means they have nowhere else to go. So if their grandparents are ill or something, there's nothing else for them. Their parents are mostly incarcerated or on drugs somewhere else.
Yeah,
And that's a lot of kids.
it is.
So what are you saying as far as your recommendation? Do you have one?
I don't have a recommendation, I'm just an employee.
Come on. Thank you, Lori. Annie, do you have anything else?
Well, I spoke to some people in the community, and I think that we're at a spot. I think one of the reasons why I like Chino is it seems like everybody seems to come together. I've had a lot of people, adults, reaching out saying they'd love to help in any way, shape, or form. Whether that, we do a brown bag thing for kids that don't have meals. I mean, I know that there's so many different aspects to this that we need to be aware of. But with that being said, I truly believe it's in our best interest right now to at least be done for a week and then reevaluate it and watching everything unfold. My hope, is that the waters calm down and as things start, because we're taking the right precautions, we're not allowing. I was on the road yesterday in Prescott, and it felt like it was Sunday, and I was in Gotham City. There was no around. So I really think that people are taking this seriously and trying to protect themselves and stay at home. And with that said, like I told you guys earlier, if we were still in school last week, I'd be all for keeping the school open. However, we're not. I know tons of families that have traveled out of country, and we're bringing them all back together. So I think a week, and then reevaluate it with the possibility of it being 2 weeks. That's my opinion.
Somebody else had a question, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just following up, we all want our kids to be in school.
Can you come up here, because John can't hear, please? I'm sorry.
And I'm Kim Bowen, by the way. We all want our kids to be in school. They're safe, and this is the place that they need to be. We all know that. We all need to work and continue with our lives, but the true fact is there are people traveling. They're traveling out of the country, traveling all over, and it is a quick spreading virus. I work in healthcare. We have illnesses and sicknesses all the time, but there's still something different about this. You all know that. So I agree with John. Annie just said that it is a week to 2 weeks. It's a 14-day quarantine. If we had all been here in our own community where there are no cases, that makes complete sense to continue. But the truth of the matter is, people have been traveling. People are walking around and they don't know if they have it or they don't. So my recommendation is the 1 to 2 weeks because of the quarantine time and because people have been out traveling. And we have families who the children are being raised by their grandparents, and that really affects their home and their safety and our community.
Go ahead.
While there are 12 cases on the ADHS website, there's still 50 pending outcomes from testing, so we don't know if there are any in Yavapai County or not at this time. So my concern is the same as, the week. Let's see if any of those cases after testing are shown to be positive, and if they're in the county that we reside in, and to protect our senior population from that 20% that we have of our kiddos.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, something.
Oh, go
Did you
ahead.
guys know that Yavapai County Health Department is putting on a meeting on Wednesday this coming week at Prescott Valley Library?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
Go
making
ahead,
sure.
Matt.
Not so much an opinion or even a question, more of just a comment. You as a board have an extremely difficult decision to make. Town leadership also has a very big decision in general through the next week or so. Whatever you guys decide as a group will be unpopular among some sort of the community. So just as a community, we all need to just use some common sense. And whatever you as a group decide, I think as a community, we need to just support what your decision is. Now that may be, in some people's opinion, a sheep mentality or something, but no matter what you all decide, there will be a lot of people that don't agree with you, and that's sad.
Yeah,
So
that is.
thank you for whatever you guys are gonna do.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that comment because I've been really comparing this against a snow day. When we call a snow day, it seems like half the people are upset with the decision and half the people are happy with the decision. So that's exactly right. There's going to be some that are happy, that support the decision, and some that don't. And the board just needs to make an informed decision what's best for the community. And, there's going to be unhappy people. That's exactly correct.
So I did want to share one final thought, and which is we have students in our school district who participate in programs that are held in other districts. And one of the considerations we have when we call a 2-hour delay or when we call a snow day is if the entities where our students are going to complete that other part of their education are going to be delayed or not in session, then what do we do with our kids who were supposed to be there during that block of time? And I think one of the things that was a contributing factor for both Humboldt and Prescott is when Yavapai College decided to forbear classes for a week and consider, and they're doing the same thing, taking that week and trying to figure out how much of an online format, like you can't do welding online, just saying. Trying to figure out what are they going to do about those lab classes and what is that going to look like. I think what that, that affected our CTED students who do all our Mountain Institute dual enrollment classes on other campuses, on Yavapai's campuses. And I think that seemed to be a contributing factor as well, because we have kids who are severely autistic who participate in a program outside of our district who we tuition them to. If that program closes, technically we're still responsible for that kid. So there are lots of other implications, and I appreciate what Matt said about the sheep mentality. Unfortunately, one of the things that we learned in 2008 when the economy stumbled so significantly was we all will be more successful and stable if we have a stronger level of interconnectedness. Well, we did that. We have a much, much stronger level of interconnectedness, and what that means in times like this is that we have to maintain that web. And it's kind of like a spider web. If you cut one little piece, the web crumbles, and that's kind of where we are with it. Because our neighboring districts have done the 2 weeks, because the college is where it is, we're interdependent, we have a strong interdependence on one another, and because of that, whether we necessarily think there aren't cases in our community, this is a different struggle in our community, we have to mitigate what it means to our community to also stay interdependent with those other districts. So that's something I just wanted you to be able to think about and kind of have a stronger awareness of. You guys sign lots of IGAs every year. All those intergovernmental agreements allow us to maintain that level of connection. And this is one of those times where you kind of learn, yeah, there might be a little downside to that. But truthfully, what we gain from that and what our kids gain from that far outweighs moments like this. And so when we talk about making good decisions for our community and making good decisions for our kids, that's also part of it as well. Because we already know that we've got a significant portion of our high school kids that won't be going to face-to-face CTEC classes next week. We already know that. We know that those classes may go online for the rest of the year. So we're already trying to adapt and make adjustments. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, because sometimes we don't think about all of the kinds of programs. Like we have EDP kids who go to programs out of the district. Those programs are closed in those districts. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, because that is kind of one other little bit of a layer for us that's a really important part of your decision-making process.
And this is probably an obvious question, or may have an obvious answer. All activities would be canceled. Track,
so
baseball.
Well, I can tell you this, AIA, which is Arizona Interscholastic Association, is reconvening on Monday, so tomorrow morning, to make a decision about the remainder of the season for spring sports. They had indicated last week, they had a regular board meeting scheduled last week, and the outcome from that board meeting was, and we were notified that it's a school by school, it's allergies, everybody, I haven't been to China. Just saying, no dry cough, just saying. What we know is that they had said it was gonna be a school by school decision. What I'm anticipating happening is the same thing that happened in college athletics. Events started being canceled by the hosting school, and so then that forced NCAA into making like division-wide decisions. And NCAA went ahead and canceled D1, 2, and 3 activities for the entire rest of the year. So all their spring sports are canceled. And so because of that,
the AIA is actually meeting
Monday.
Meeting tomorrow.
Yes, and I'm kind of expecting a similar decision to come from AIA like came from NCAA.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah, that'll be out of our hands.
of course.
Does anybody feel strong enough to make a motion?
Well, I move that we, after consideration and input from the group here, that we decide to wait 1 week, have no school this coming week, extend the spring vacation by 1 week, and then make a decision at that time whether to continue or whether to reconvene school.
Do we need to set another board meeting to make that another decision?
I would think so.
So you're saying it continue to be closed next week?
This coming
Yeah.
week.
And see what the outcome is. If we don't have any reported cases again in our county, that would be an implication that things are going better than they might be, and it would be appropriate to reconvene school.
Does anybody want to second that motion?
There's no second required, but I just want to make a comment real quick before the board votes.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that everyone understands what that means for employees next week. During spring break, our 10 and 11-month employees don't work. That would not be the case because they're going to end up working. So the next week, 12-month employees. So we're talking business office, district office, and 2 employees pretty much at each school, along with custodial and maintenance staff. And I want to mention something about that. We'll end up working next week, including tomorrow. And it's important. I think it's good that the custodial and maintenance staff are working because they can continue cleaning and things like that they've been working on, and to make sure our campuses are safe and hygiene and things like that. And then the 10 and 11 month employees, which include teachers and aides and bus drivers, would not work Monday and Tuesday, but they would be required to come in on Wednesday and Thursday. And I've spoken with all the principals, along with the department heads, and they've got or will have some probably professional development or other activities or planning for what to do if we decide to go out longer on that Wednesday and Thursday. And then we'll also meet with every school and department to kind of let them know what the district plan is. And lastly, I spoke to Ben Montgomery, who's our Sodexo general manager, yesterday, and for tomorrow, and this may change for Tuesday, but for tomorrow, we will plan on having stack lunches available at territorial schools that we can actually distribute to any child that's 18 years or younger, whether they go to our school or not. And that's the summer feeding program that he feels that we can put in place tomorrow. We have the food, we have the labor to do that tomorrow. We don't know how many, and we need to get that information out, but we'll do that. But that will be, again, for any child 18 years or younger, whether they go to our district or not, can come and get a free lunch at territorial schools. And the idea is we have that turnaround that goes around that goes in front of the cafeteria. They may not even have to get out of their car. We can just hand them the sack lunch and they move on. So that is in the plan for tomorrow as well. I wanted to kind of let you know what it's going to look like this week, and that we have a plan in place at least this week on how to address things.
I don't like that today doesn't give any parents time to plan.
I can talk about, so one of the things that we'll do, just kind of pending, no matter what the decision is by the board, we have a plan to communicate with all staff and families by about noon or 1 o'clock today. At 1 o'clock, your decision will be posted on the website. Inger, does our auto dialers, will be in at 11, and she's going to, we'll get the message, composed based on your decision, and those auto dialer calls and stuff will go out right away.
And I think parents are pretty prepared. I cannot tell you the number of phone calls I've been getting since Friday. So, yeah, I think they're ready.
And I actually looked at social media today, and people were posting that we were having our board meeting, and everyone's kind of, in my opinion, kind of expecting it. So I think the buzz is out good enough that it's not going to catch people totally off guard, to be honest.
Well, I still think it's premature, but we have a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Annie, did you vote?
Favor or opposed?
Favor of closing?
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned then.
No. One more.
I wanna cry.
There is one more agenda item. In order for us to close, we actually have to make a request, or the board needs to make a formal request to the state to do that. So that's what the next agenda item is just requesting that the state allow us to close, or that even though we're going to close, it's kind of after the fact. But it's just the board needs to make that request to the state, and then we'll work out the minutes and everything else on that side. But that is just a formality that our attorney asked us to do.
Okay, John, I'm gonna take over this part of the agenda for Penny real quick. So item 6B is discussion and possible action regarding notification of school closure to the Department of Education. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns, or discussion on that?
Just pretty much a formality.
It is, absolutely. So,
Can we take care of that today?
yes, we need to take care of that today. Can I get a motion for the notification to the Department of Education?
I'll make a motion that we notify of our school closure to the Department of Education.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, go ahead.
Okay. That concludes our meeting then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Meeting
much.
adjourned. Okay.